For 10 long years, Ethan Cole lived alone on a forgotten world called Red Mesa 9. Once the planet had been a proud human colony, full of ranchers, miners, and dreamers. But now it was only red sand, broken machines, and silent winds that whispered through the canyons. Ethan's small ranch sat on the edge of an old crater, a lonely shelter built from rusted ship parts. The walls were dented, the roof patched, but it was home. He grew a few crops in a hydro bed and raised 2 robo-horses that helped him haul water from the wells. His only company was a small robot named Dusty, who talked too much for its size. Every morning, Ethan would step outside and watch the 2 suns rise over the dunes. The sky turned gold and red, painting the sand in shades of fire. He would sip his bitter coffee, scratch his beard, and whisper to himself, "Another day, same old world." He was once a marshal in the Terran Corps, a lawkeeper in the frontier worlds. But that was long ago, before the Consortium War, before humanity lost its freedom. When the alien Consortium took control, they forced humans to abandon many of their colonies. Ethan stayed behind. He told himself he liked the silence. He told himself he didn't need anyone. But deep down, he knew it wasn't peace. It was punishment. A knock in the storm that evening, a storm rolled across the desert. Not of wind and sand, but of static lightning. The sky turned purple and thunder shook the ground. Ethan was repairing a power line when he saw something bright fall from the clouds. A streak of light crashing into the canyon beyond the ridge. He frowned. "Meteor," he muttered. "Or trouble." By nightfall, the storm grew worse. The power flickered. Dusty complained, "Master Ethan, outside conditions are unsafe. Suggest lockdown protocol." But before Ethan could answer, he heard it. A soft, desperate knock on his door. He froze. Nobody had come here in years. The knock came again, weaker this time. Ethan grabbed his plasma revolver and opened the door slowly. A gust of hot wind blew in, carrying red dust and the smell of ozone. There on his doorstep stood a young woman, pale, trembling, and bleeding from her shoulder. Her clothes were torn and burned, and in her hand she clutched a small metal cube that glowed faintly blue. She looked up at him with tired eyes and whispered, "Please, help me." Then she collapsed. The girl with the cube Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her pulse was weak and the wound on her shoulder was fresh. A plasma burn, clean and deep. Whoever had done it had meant to kill her. He carried her inside, laid her on his cot, and called for Dusty to fetch the medkit. "Who is she?" the little robot asked. "Don't know," Ethan said. "But she's hurt. That's all that matters." He cleaned her wound carefully and injected a dose of nano-healers. The cube she carried rolled from her hand onto the floor. It pulsed with soft light like it was alive. When she finally woke, it was morning. The storm had passed, leaving the desert silent again. She blinked and looked around the room, confused but alert. "You're safe," Ethan said quietly. "Name's Ethan Cole. You crashed out there." The girl swallowed and sat up slowly. "I'm Lyra Dane. I wasn't crashing. I was running." "Running from what?" he asked. She hesitated, then looked him in the eyes. "The Consortium." Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years. Secrets. In the dust, Lyra explained that she was a settler, engineer from a colony ship called Aurora's Dream. Her crew had discovered something deep under the surface of another planet, a device of old human design buried since the ancient wars. When they tried to study it, the Consortium arrived. They claimed the discovery was forbidden. Most of her crew were captured or destroyed. Lyra barely escaped with a small part of the device and the glowing cube she carried. "This cube," she said, holding it up, "is part of the Ark Protocol, a defense network built by the First Terran Empire. It could protect entire worlds. If we can restore it, we can free the colonies from the Consortium's control." Ethan stared at the cube. It reminded him of something he'd seen long ago, secret tech that only the old Corps used to talk about. "You're saying this thing can bring back humanity's power?" Lyra nodded. "If we can unlock it," Ethan shook his head. "You don't understand, girl. The Consortium watches everything. You light that thing up and they'll come fast." "They're already coming," she whispered. "They tracked my signal. I saw their drones before I crashed." Ethan cursed under his breath and walked to the window. The horizon shimmered under the morning suns. Somewhere out there, he knew the machines were already searching. The drones arrived by evening. Ethan had packed what supplies he could. He'd planned to leave at dawn, but the warning came sooner. Tusty picked up movement on the scanners, metallic blips circling the ranch. Consortium drones, the robot said. 6 units, closing fast. Lyra's face went pale. They found us. Ethan holstered his revolver and checked his old armor plates. Then we don't give them the satisfaction. The first drone came screaming over the ridge, a sleek black triangle of light and sound. It fired before Ethan could blink, blasting the outer wall apart. He dove behind cover and returned fire, his plasma revolver glowing blue in his grip. His shot hit the drone's eye, sending it spinning into the dirt. 2 down, Dusty shouted as small explosions rocked the ranch. Don't count so loud, Ethan growled. Lyra crouched near the table, trying to protect the cube. We have to leave. They'll level this place. Not yet, Ethan said. We make them regret finding us first. He triggered an old defense turret he'd built years ago, and it roared to life, cutting down the next wave of drones in a shower of sparks. But there were too many. A final blast struck the power core and the ranch went dark. Flames licked the roof as smoke filled the air. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm. We move now. The escape. They ran into the night, the burning ranch behind them casting long shadows on the dunes. The desert wind howled, carrying the smell of metal and ash. Dusty rolled beside them, chirping warnings as sensors picked up more drones in pursuit. After miles of running, they reached the canyon, a deep scar in the land where old mining tunnels disappeared underground. Ethan knew it well. He'd used it long ago to hide from the war. They found shelter in a small cave where the walls still glowed faintly from ancient machinery. Lyra sat down, breathing hard, her wound reopening slightly. Ethan tore part of his sleeve and wrapped it around her shoulder. You're lucky I didn't forget how to patch people up. She smiled weakly. Thank you, Marshal. He froze. How did you... I saw your badge, she said softly. Terran Corps. You were one of them. He sighed. A long time ago. Lyra looked at the cube again, the blue light reflecting in her eyes. You could walk away, leave me. The consortium wouldn't care. Ethan stared out at the red horizon, silent for a long moment. I tried walking away once, he said finally. Didn't work. Outside in the far distance, small dots of light rose into the night sky, the consortium's patrols scanning the desert for them. Lyra looked at Ethan. They'll come again. Ethan nodded, eyes cold and steady. Then we'll be ready. He checked his revolver, its power cell still glowing faintly. For the first time in 10 years, the old fire inside him flickered back to life. The desert wind blew through the canyon, carrying the faint sound of thunder. Somewhere far above, the stars burned brighter than before, as if they knew that humanity's story was not over yet. The suns rose slowly over Red Mesa 9, painting the canyons in gold and crimson. Ethan Cole stood at the mouth of the cave, his revolver hanging by his side, his eyes fixed on the endless dunes. He had not slept. Neither had Lyra Dane. They both knew the consortium would not stop until they were found. Behind him, the cube, the piece of the Ark protocol, sat on a rock, glowing softly. Lyra had been working on it all night, connecting it to a small power unit from her crashed shuttle. Her fingers were fast and sure, but her face was pale. She had lost a lot of blood, though she refused to rest. Ethan finally spoke. You keep staring at that thing like it's going to save the whole galaxy. Lyra looked up. It can, she said simply. If we can reach the core transmitter. It's hidden somewhere on this planet. My ship's log said there's an old Terran command post buried under these canyons. If we can link the cube to it, the Ark will activate. Ethan nodded slowly. And then what? Then humanity can rise again, she whispered. The old defense grids, the colonies, everything. We'll have hope again. Ethan didn't say anything for a while. He just stared at the desert. Hope was a word he hadn't used in 10 years. Ghosts of the past by noon, they left the cave and began their journey through the canyons. Dusty rolled ahead, scanning the terrain while Ethan kept his hand near his revolver. The air was dry and still, and every sound echoed against the rocks. After hours of walking, they reached a narrow path leading down into a valley. At the bottom stood a cluster of broken towers, the remains of an old Terran outpost. Metal beams rose from the sand like the bones of a giant creature. The place was silent, but Ethan could feel the weight of history in the air. This is it, Lyra said, her eyes wide. The command post. Ethan scanned the ruins. We should be careful. The consortium might have left traps. Inside, the walls were covered with faded Terran markings. Old lights flickered weakly. In the center of the main chamber stood a tall pillar of black steel, half buried in sand. Strange blue symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Lyra walked up to it with trembling hands. "This is a relay core," she said. "If I can connect the cube here, we can broadcast the arc signal." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And what does that mean for us?" She smiled faintly. "It means we'll have company. A lot of it." The storm approaches, they set to work quickly. Lyra connected wires, adjusted circuits, and entered codes into her datapad. Dusty assisted by translating old Terran schematics. Ethan kept watch, scanning the horizon through his scope. He didn't have to wait long. As the first sun dipped low, the sky shimmered with silver light. Ships and small, fast consortium drones were descending from orbit. "They're coming," he said. Lyra didn't look up. "How many?" "Too many." She tightened her grip on the cube. "I just need a little more time." Ethan took a deep breath. "Then I'll buy it for you." He walked out to the edge of the ruins and crouched behind a fallen beam. He hadn't felt like this in years, alive, alert, ready. The fear was there, of course, but so was something stronger. Purpose. As the first drone swooped low, he fired. His plasma revolver cracked like thunder, striking the drone square in its center. It exploded in a burst of light. Then another came, and another. Ethan moved fast, rolling between cover, firing again and again. "Dusty!" he shouted. "Get her those readings." The little robot beeped. "Working as fast as my circuits allow, Marshal." The ground shook as larger crafts began landing. From the dust, tall metal soldiers emerged. The consortium enforcers, cold and silent, their eyes glowing green. The battle for Red Mesa. Ethan fought like a man reborn. His revolver blazed, cutting through the enforcers with perfect aim. But there were too many. He took cover behind an old generator, breathing hard, sweat mixing with the dust on his face. Lyra's voice came through his comm link.
"Ethan, I'm close."
"Just hold them off a little longer." He smiled grimly. "You've got it." He reached into his belt and pulled out a small energy grenade, one of the last from his old martial days. He threw it into the group of advancing soldiers. The explosion lit up the canyon like daylight, scattering metal parts everywhere. But even as he fought, more ships appeared in the sky. The ground trembled as a massive consortium dropship landed near the ruins. From it stepped a tall figure in dark armor, the alien commander. It spoke through a translator, its voice deep and cold. "Human, surrender the girl and the device. Do this and your death will be painless." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You first." He fired, but the commander's shield absorbed the shot. The alien raised a glowing weapon, but before it could fire, Dusty rolled between them, projecting a bright flash of light that blinded the creature for a second. "Run, Master Ethan," Dusty yelled. "Save the mission." The explosion that followed tore through the ruins. Dusty was gone. Ethan staggered to his feet, heart pounding. He turned to see Lyra still working at the relay, tears in her eyes as she whispered, "Almost done, Dusty, almost done." The arc awakens, the alien commander advanced again. Ethan picked up his revolver, but the weapon was low on power. He had one shot left. He aimed at the relay's power line and fired. The plasma bolt hit the circuit, overloading it. And in that instant, Lyra connected the cube. A deep hum filled the air. The ground began to vibrate. Blue light spread through the metal walls, racing up the towers and into the sky. The arc protocol had awakened. Lyra fell to her knees, watching as a massive wave of light burst from the ruins, sweeping across the desert like a living storm. The alien ships froze midair, their systems failing one by one. The enforcers dropped, lifeless as the power of the old Terran network came back online. Ethan turned to the commander. "You wanted the device? Here it is." The light consumed the alien's armor, sending it crashing into the sand. Silence followed. Ethan walked back toward Lyra. She was pale, exhausted, but smiling. "It worked," she said softly. "The Ark is awake. Humanity has a chance again." He knelt beside her. "You did good, Lyra." She looked up at him, her eyes bright. "We did it, Marshal." A new dawn the next morning, the desert was quiet again. The skies were clear and the suns rose higher than ever. The arc signal shimmered across the horizon, a beacon reaching out to every human world that still remained. Ships would hear it. Colonies would rise again. Humanity was no longer silent. Ethan stood at the top of the canyon looking out at the land that had once been his prison. It now felt like freedom. Lyra joined him, her arm bandaged, the cube now dull and silent. "Where will you go now?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Don't know. Maybe there's someone out there who still needs a marshal." She nodded. "Then I'll come with you. The Ark needs defenders, and so do the people." He looked at her, the corners of his eyes softening. "You sure you're ready for that kind of trouble?" Lyra grinned. "After all this, I'm not afraid anymore." Ethan chuckled quietly. "Good. Then let's ride." They mounted the 2 robo-horses that had survived the night and began their journey toward the horizon. The desert wind blew behind them, carrying the faint echo of Dusty's voice from the recorder Lyra had saved. "Keep riding, Marshal. Humanity's counting on you." Ethan tipped his hat to the rising suns. "We're riding, partner." All the way home. As they disappeared into the glowing dunes, the Ark signal pulsed once more, strong and steady. And somewhere across the stars, humans who had long hidden in fear looked up, hearing the message of hope echo through the void.